Yo guys, what's up? In this video, we'll be talking about how to study theory. A friend of mine asked me to make this video, so I thought maybe it would be useful for some people. So this video will be giving specific and applicable study systems that you can use instead of being one of those vague videos where they say study smart, improve your study techniques, and they don't give you specific actions to take. It will be broken down into two parts. The first part will be how to study theory, which will be basically study theory tips. And then the second part will be general study tips, whereby I'll be giving you study tips that you can use across almost all subjects, no matter the context. Before I forget, please subscribe if you're interested in similar content. Comment what you want me to make next. Like the video and share it with your friends so that they can be awesome like you. So, let's start with the first part. The first part, which is theory study tips, is scoping. Scoping the subject basically helps you. Okay, basically, what scoping is getting an idea of how the landscape of the whole course or subject is. So it'll give you an understanding of how much content you have to cover and what the content is about. A scope generally we know to be the thing that the teacher gives us to prepare for the test. So it's something similar to that, but it's a scope for the whole course, which is everything you have to study in advance before the test. I like to use a mind map for scoping, but some other people say they like to write their scopes down in the form of a table of contents. I think a mind map is far more superior, and I will be showing you guys an example of a mind map of this video at the end of the video. But scoping is basically, for me, making a mind map of all the things that will be there on the course, writing arrows to show how they are connected, and making your own connections to the content so that you know how the content is and how it's structured, how much you have to cover, and how you cover it. Making a mind map will be very helpful because when you make a mind map, what happens is you get to know how to attach or where to attach the facts that the lecturer is giving to you, that the YouTube video is giving to you when you're studying specific portions of the topic. Because when you go to a lecture or you go to a classroom and you go to learn when they're teaching or lecturing, what happens is you feel like they are throwing facts at you. For example, you'll feel like maybe your life sciences teacher is just throwing facts at you. She's saying, "Oh, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell," and the next thing is saying cellulose is, I don't know, I forgot what cellulose is, but maybe the next thing is saying the chloroplast is what chloroplast is green, and then the next thing is saying there's myelin sheath or whatever, and you feel like they're just throwing facts at you. But if you have a mind map, you know that the myelin sheath falls into the nervous system, whatever, and the what falls into the cell, and the cell connects to the nerve. You get the connections. So the information holds more value to you because you know how it's relevant, and you retain the information better because you know where it falls into the bigger picture of the whole subject. So scoping is very important. You do it before you study for the test. You do it after you study for the test to reinforce it. You do it before you start studying the module and start doing lectures. It'll be very helpful. It is phenomenal, and on its own, it can crank up your marks a lot, even before you do any other thing. So we are going to the next part of the video now, which is comprehension. We just did scoping, which is understanding the landscape of the cause or the subject. Now we are on comprehension. Comprehension is understanding the cause or the subject. So you have to read the material to understand the subject. The material may be a book, it may be lecture slides, it may be an article or a video or whatever is recommended by your teacher or lecturers or your exam guidelines. So I would prefer you read exactly what is recommended. So for high school students, you read the book or the exam guidelines, preferably both for high school students. For university students, it's the lecture slides. Read all the lecture slides. Read the supplied material. However, you don't read the material passively. You don't read like how can I make an example? We are in the new age of technology. Technology is advancing, it's taking over the world, and everything is becoming automated. We might lose our jobs in the future. Yeah, well, that's just passive reading. Better reading will be using the Feynman technique, which would be we are moving into the new age. What does that mean? It means things are changing, times are changing. We are moving into a different future than we've been in the past. And then the text is technology is advancing and everything is becoming automated. What does that mean? And how is that applicable in my life? Well, at varsity, they mark our papers using computer systems. They are automating marking, right? So it's applicable in my life. Tesla is using all car factories actually use automated systems to bring the parts together. Why things are becoming automated. Okay, now I understand what that means. That's what you do when you read. That's what you do when you read. You read a part, you ask yourself what it means, or you ask yourself if it applies to you in real life, if you agree with it, and then you go on to the next. And that's the Feynman technique. It's basically explaining the thing to yourself, but I use it in smaller portions. So you read a small part, you explain to yourself, read another part. You may either do that or do the next part the other way, which is reading an entire page, finishing it, and trying to recite it to yourself verbally with your mouth, or trying to write it down, but preferably not inside your head, because in your head you might think it makes sense while it doesn't really, and it's being lazy to not want to write it down. I say write it down because some people feel weird saying it with their mouth, speaking to themselves, but I think speaking is better because it's faster than for me than writing. But use what you prefer in that sense. So read the material, but read it while interacting with it instead of reading it passively. That will help you understand the content. And if you already had done a mind map, that will crank up your marks to a huge degree. Now, the third tip is write your own summarized notes. But this is a bit controversial because writing summarized notes, for most people, they think how you do this is you take a book, you open it, you read a sentence, and then you read a paragraph, you think about how you can write that paragraph in a shorter way, and then they write 3 bullet points for the paragraph, they go on to the next thing. They reference to the book directly, they write everything and use the words in the book. That's not how I think you should take notes. I think that's one of the most useless ways of taking notes because it's passive. You are not actively recalling the information in your head, so it's not reinforcing the information. It does help you take notes, and it's faster and it's easier to do that, but you want to use your note taking skill in conjunction with your reciting. So if you recite the information while taking notes, that will make the information stick in your head better. Now, how do you do this? How you write your summarized notes is you take a plain sheet of paper after you've read the content, or maybe immediately after you've read the content, or maybe an hour after, whatever time period. You take a sheet of paper where you write your notes, or you take your laptop and write your notes, or whatever device you're using or system you use to write notes. Plain sheet of paper, you write everything you remember in the simplest, most specific way possible. You write every single thing you remember from the thing you read. You then structure it in a good way and leave spaces for what you think you've forgotten. And then go to your notes now, your book, your lecture slides, whatever it is you're using, and then cross-reference that. Check what you forgot. Now, what you've done is you've tried to recite the information which will help it stay in your head. You've written notes, which is something you needed to do anyways, and now you are checking what you don't know, which will help you reinforce what you don't know, and it'll be very helpful in keeping the information in your head. Now you see what you don't know, and then you copy that down. Maybe it might be helpful for you to write it in another pen color, maybe, and then try to recite it later on the day. But the important thing is you try to take the notes while you're not looking at them, and then add the stuff that you forgot. And then after you've taken those notes, you keep updating your notes. When you have a lecture and they give you extra information on the topic, you go to add the information on the notes if it's important, especially if the lecturer is emphasizing it, which means it is important. If you have a conversation with a friend and they give you insights into the thing you were learning that you did not include in your notes, go include that, go edit your notes and add that inside. If you watch a YouTube video and it gives you information you didn't have on your notes, go add that. If you stumble upon more information in your books, add the information on your notes if it is important to your course. Now that's for comprehension. So firstly, I said we had to scope the subject, which means we have to write mind maps, which will show us the structure of how everything is connected. Now we are on comprehension, which says we have to read the supplied material, but we have to actively engage with the supplied material and not read passively. And we have to write summarized notes while not looking at them, and then update them through lectures, friends, YouTube videos, books, or whatever source you use. Now, let us get to the third tip of studying theory. The third tip of studying theory is you have to retain the information. If you studied the information, if you understand and the comprehension of the information, you also have to recall it. It's simply not enough that you understand it. You also have to be able to write the test. And in order to be able to write the test, you must be able to remember the answers, remember the specific details when you get to the test. So how you do this is you use active recall. Active recall is the idea of not passively writing information down or reading information, but rather trying to recall the information from your head while not looking at it. And that will help you to remember the information better in the future, because remembering information is a skill, and it's a skill that you improve for every specific information that you are learning. So this active recall you do by, number one, the note taking way that I said, which is you write your own summarized notes and then you update them. You do it by the Feynman technique, which is how I said you should do when you use your comprehension on the previous page. I said you should read information and then try to explain it to yourself. And then another way in which you can use active recall is to write tests. How do you write tests? Well, I have a video on that, on how to write practice question papers. I'm gonna link it at the top right corner. But you write the tests. When you write the tests, all the questions you get wrong on the test, you make flashcards for them. But if you see that I got this question wrong, but I understand it now and I won't get it wrong the next time, probably don't make a flashcard for it, because you don't want to have too many flashcards, since it'll be overwhelming and you won't do them anyways if they're a lot. So make flashcards for the questions you got wrong on the tests and practice the flashcards. It's better to use a flashcard app like Anki or what am I using? Ramnote. There are many other flashcard apps. You may use that as long as they have a spaced repetition mechanism embedded in them. So I just recommend Anki for simplicity, but there are many others that use a more complicated system. Use spaced repetition and the forgetting curve at your advantage. The forgetting curve is the idea that if you learn something today, you are going to forget it exponentially. So I'm gonna make an example of this forgetting curve and how it works. Let's say I learn how to apply the general quadratic formula today, and then I learn the general quadratic formula and how it's structured today. Tomorrow, at the end of the day, I might forget what the general quadratic formula is and how to apply it. So I would have to recite how to use the general quadratic formula tomorrow during the day and at night, or at night. And then if I do that, it'll take me a long amount of time to forget it. So since it took me one day while I was studying today, if I study it again tomorrow, it'll take me maybe 3 days to forget it, or 4 days, but it varies depending on the information and the person and the study technique. So if I study that information again after 3 days, it'll take me maybe a week to forget the information. Then if I study the information after a week, it might take me 2 weeks to forget the information. Then it might take me a month. So you don't have to study the same thing every day. What this means when you apply to spaced repetition is you have to space your repetition of studying the information such that you retain the information. So how you do that is, maybe you study a certain chapter today, you try to write question papers or recite the chapter again in 2 days or 1 day. You try to recite the chapter's information in 5 days. Try to recite the chapter's information in 7 days. It's not a linear thing, so you can decide maybe on how much content there is on how to space out your repetitions, but it's better to use an app like Remnote to space your repetitions out. So that's retention. So in retention, you have to use active recall, which is actively engaging with the content. By this, you should write question papers and make flashcards for what you forgot, which you will recite on a spaced repetition basis, and using the forgetting curve to your advantage. Now we've gotten to the second half of the video, which is not exactly half, but it's another part of the video. These are general study tips which you can use on all courses and subjects. These general study tips are: number 1, use the Pomodoro method. The Pomodoro method is a method of studying whereby you study for 25 minutes, you rest for 5 minutes, and then you study again for 25 minutes, then you rest for 5 minutes, and then you keep repeating that. Resting to 5 minutes, studying 25 minutes. After 4 Pomodoro repetitions, maybe you take a 30 or 20-minute break, which will help you recharge for the 4 sessions you've been focused on. How does this help? We need 100% of your focus when you are studying. So you cannot tell me that you are focusing for 100% if you've been studying for 6 hours without rest. So how we optimize on focus is we add breaks in which you can focus on whatever other thing you would have done if you were distracted while studying. So you just focus for 25 minutes, put all your focus in the work, do as much as you can, and then rest for 5 minutes, and then again you focus 100% for 25 minutes, and then you keep doing that. While you are studying during the 25 minutes, a lot of thoughts are going to come in your head. And I got this really amazing tip from Study Trust, which is my Basri support, Basri thingy. So they said that we should, if we are using the Pomodoro method, while we are on the 25-minute focus time, what's going to happen is a lot of thoughts are going to come in your mind. Like, I need to eat, I need to go to the bathroom, I need to drink water, I need to call my friend, I need to call my mom. All these thoughts are going to come to your mind that are trying to distract you. That's fine. What you need to do when those thoughts come to your mind is you just turn to the back of your exercise book, write down the thoughts, write down whatever it is that you feel like doing, that your body or your mind is asking from you. Write it down. Acknowledge that your body wants this, and then turn back to your work and say you will help your body, and then continue focusing for the 25 minutes. And then when you get to the 5-minute break, then you satisfy all these things that your body's been asking for you. So if it's been wanting to go to the toilet, go to the toilet. If it's been wanting to eat, grab a snack. Not too much food because you don't have enough time to finish a full plate, I guess. If it's been wanting you to call your friend, but not for 5 minutes because you have to prepare to start studying again. So 4 minutes, maybe 3 minutes would be probably good. Do all these things during the 5-minute break. Go back to 25-minute focus. We have other thoughts, write them down. You satisfy them during the break. Perfect. Now, another thing you should do is definitely schedule time to study in advance and plan what you will accomplish during that time. A thing I see with many people is they say they will study and they don't specify how much they will cover. And what will happen is they will spend like 2 hours studying one small thing that they would have spent maybe 15 minutes on and finished. And the reason for that is because they don't have a plan. They don't know what they'll cover anyways. And the interesting thing is everything is interesting if you look into it. So if you don't plan what you'll cover, you just get there, look into one thing, get interested in it, look deeper in it, and study the details that don't matter. So just plan how much you want to cover so you can be conscious, and then you can cover that content because you know how much you have to cover. It's sort of similar to the sculping thing. The final tip is kind of weird if you're reading it. It's aim low. And I got this from Jordan Peterson. The idea is if you are getting a level 3 in a report at school, don't aim for level 7 probably on the next term because there's not very high probability that you'll get it immediately, right? So what you do is if you're getting a level 3, you aim for a level 4 and you do as much as you can to improve a bit from where you are, and then you get to a level 4. When you get to a level 4, you aim for a level 5. When you get to level 5, you aim for level 6, and you keep repeating that. If you do as much as you can, you might be on level 3, aiming for level 4, and actually get to level 5. You might be on level 5 aiming for level 6 and get to level 7. But the good thing about aiming low is you don't get to beat yourself up if you don't get to that much high of a height. Because if you're aiming for level 7 at level 3, it's not really realistic to go directly. You can definitely get to level 7 from level 3, but it's easier for you to aim for level 4 or level 5, which is the road towards level 7, and then you can aim for level 7 afterwards. And that will be very good for you because you will receive the gratification in approaching the level that you want, because the ultimate goal maybe might be a level 7 and the road towards that is a level 5. And if you get to a level 5, you can get to be happy for yourself because you are going in the right direction towards what you want to get to, instead of just saying, oh, I'm getting a level 3, I want to get a level 7. Next term you get level 5, you're like, I failed, I didn't do what I wanted, which is really bad. Yeah, so that has brought us to the end of our video. Thank you for watching. Once again, please subscribe, share, and comment. But now I will show you guys an example of a scoping of the video to show you how you can scope your own courses and subjects. So this video started by saying that there are study tips for theory, right? So that's what the video is all about. But the study tips for theory are just one branch of things, or of study tips. There's study tips for maths, there's study tips for a mixture of application and theory, there's study tips for accounting, there's different study tips. So it's all under the branch of general study tips. That's general study. So although this was at the end of the video, this is actually the head of the video in a way. So study tips, but they branch from general study tips. So what were the study tips for theory? The study tips for theory were broken down into 3. First, there was scoping, which I'm doing right now. And then there was comprehension. And then there was retention. It might have been written in a different way, but there was study tips for theory, which was scoping, comprehension, and retention. Notice how, even though general study tips is the head of everything, I didn't put it at the center because the head of the video was study tips and theory. Study tips for theory. So this should be at the head, but this is here because it's where this branch is from. Now there was scoping, comprehension, and retention. Under scoping, okay, there was I should do, mind maps. Then under comprehension, there was reading, but there was reading actively, not just reading. And then there was updating your notes through lectures, videos, etc. And then there was note taking. For retention, it was basically all about active recall. And active recall includes things like writing tests, flashcards, etc. So this is basically like a mind map for this, but it's very simple because that video is not very complicated. Then for general study tips, we had the Pomodoro. There was the Feynman technique, which I mentioned here, but you can mention it here too because it's basically a general study tip. Feynman, and then maybe you could draw a connection between the two because this was also here, and then right, you can add the other study tips. So this is how you make your mind map. You put the important, like the main topic at the center. You connect all the other things in the way that they feed into each other. I like using the arrows to show that this is coming from this is coming from this is coming from that, and these are coming from this, right? Just to show the connections. So thank you once again for watching. That is all.